you all for coming. And Maxime is just switching to the phone in the meantime. Well, we will, to start speaking. And in the meantime, I can maybe talk a little bit about our guest speaker. So you know a little bit about who will be talking today. Dr. Maxime Rageot. He's a postdoctoral researcher in biomolecular archaeology at the Ludwig Maximilian University of Munich, at the Department of Pre- and Proto-History, and at the University of Bretagne, at the Themus Laboratory. And he's also an assistant lecturer in archaeological science at the University of Tübingen in Germany. And his research interests lie in the characterization of ancient organic substances and their systems of production during pre- and proto-history in Western Europe and also the Mediterranean area. So in addition, he identifies biomaterials, for example, animal, adipose fats, dairy, beehive products, fermented beverages, plant oils, tars, resins, and his work also targeted at investigating the procurement strategies, the transformation processes, and the areas of activity in which organic substances were used. And in his different fields of research he is combining including archaeology, analytical chemistry, experimental archaeology, spatial analysis, and more recent ethnoarchaeology at the French Polar Institute program ETAPAS. And he's also currently involved in the ERC project, Food Transformations of Food in the Eastern Mediterranean Late Bronze Age, and the regional program Late Ages, Archaeology of Dairy Products in Proto-History Brittany. And before these current positions, he obtained his master's in molecular chemistry. And sorry, I was checking in between. In molecular chemistry at the University of Rennes, and a PhD in prehistory at the University of Nice, Sophia Antipolis, France. And his PhD research focused on the management of plant resins, tars, and organic fossil substances in the northwestern Mediterranean region during prehistory. It will be really interesting. Then he completed the 3 years of postdoctoral training at the University of Tübingen in Germany, where his work focused mainly on paleodietary and consumption practices during the early Iron Age and Central Europe times. So, Maxime, are you back? Do you see the invite now? Let's see if it's working now. Right. Yeah, I don't know what to do anymore. Maxime, could you give us any feedback if you're on your phone now? If you can see the notification, so you can come up to the stage and speak with us. Okay, great. So do you see on top of the screen either a green notification where it gives you the option to come to the stage to speak? Or if you click on your own profile, if you see an invite to speak? Okay, that's pretty much impossible. So can you click on your own profile picture, please? So next to your name, where you wrote the text, this message in the chat, Maxime Rageot, there's a symbol, MR, like a round symbol. If you click on that, your own profile pops up. And then all the way on the bottom, there should be invite to speak or an invitation to speak. And if you click on that, you should be joining the stage. Did you click on that invitation? LT, I'm gonna make you moderator. Could you try to invite Maxime maybe to speak? Or Z, if you want to come up, could you try? Maybe LT is away from the phone for a minute. Thank you so much, Z.
Sure. So
Maybe
I'm
it's a
inviting.
problem.
Yeah, I just sent an invitation. I also followed Maxime. Whoop, look.
Yeah, that worked. Perfect. Yay. Welcome. Thank you so much for being patient. And yeah, welcome to the stage. So you should have a little microphone symbol. Yep,
Yeah,
there you go.
sorry.
How are you?
So it was only the first time that I could see the green invitation. I don't know why.
Well, it worked.
Maybe because I followed. I don't know, but it worked. So we're here.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all
Bravo.
that matters.
Bravo.
Thank you so much, everyone, for yeah, and thank you, Maxime, for not giving up.
I was close to giving up, I have to admit, because
okay, we said persistence, right? We learned that in science. Wonderful. So yeah, welcome. I kind of already talked about you, where you work, where you went to school, and about your PhD thesis a little bit in the meantime. Usually we do like a brief interview. Just let me ask like a question that we usually ask before we start, and this is,
okay.
How did you come to work like in archaeology, and how did you discover that this is something you want to do with your life? Really interesting. Yeah.
Actually, I come in archaeology because I wanted to do some different kind of research. I was interested in different kind of things, natural science, history, past society, sociology. And actually, archaeology is one of the rare options when you can integrate every kind of field of research. And I have to admit that I love it to integrate different kind of, because actually I use natural science for archaeology, and I think it's one of the rare, actually, yeah, one of the rare topic where you could work with every kind of specialist from humanities, natural science together and combine every kind of research. So that's the idea why I came there.
That sounds wonderful, and I can relate to that. And I think almost everyone probably that is here can relate to that because, you know, we cover so many different areas of
Yeah.
science, and that you get to do that in your everyday work life. That's wonderful. So that's a great answer. Thank you for giving us that, that background information about you. And if you would like to start with your presentation, everyone has access to the PDF. So if you can just mention when you switch to the next slide, that's very helpful. And the
Okay,
stage
sure.
is yours. Thank you.
Okay. So in the first slide, I would like to first to thank you to invite me, and sorry for the beginning of this of this talk, and but finally we succeed to manage it. So as I was beginning to tell you, I'm a specialist that we call nowadays in biomolecular archaeology. So that means that they study mostly ancient lipids and other kind of products from plant metabolism, let's say. And I work generally on the use of organic product during the last 6 millennium BC in Western Europe, Mediterranean region, so including Egypt, and also until recently in Southern Caucasus. And so that's why for those which are not so familiar with this field of research, I will first present an introduction to the potential that can offer this kind of study of biomolecular markers in archaeological context, and how they can provide insight into several practices in ancient societies. And of course, I will focus the talk on the body care and especially on the embalming practices. So in the next slide, so slides 2, I just wanted to show you that the study of organic resources in archaeological context has long been challenging. Indeed, materials that we discover in archaeological context since Paleolithic periods until nowadays was limited during a long time to the study of bio and georesources that can be characterized through their specific morphology. For example, when you find ceramics, flint tools, etc. But also, when I say specific morphology, also including at microscopic scales. Here you have in this picture some biomaterial that we can recognize through at microscopical scale, like pollens, charcoals, phytoliths. So we can identify in this way. But it's just after, so next slide, sorry, slide number 3. It's after some big development in chemical techniques, especially in the 80s, and more especially the development of the biomolecular archaeology, that we were able to characterize some ancient biomolecules. And thus, a wide range of biological resources that have lost all their morphological characteristics have been revealed. And it has renewed and completed the data, particularly in the field of food, health, and population mobility from the past society. So here I show you different kind of big molecules which can nowadays be identified. And my research focus on some biomolecular component, as I was saying at the beginning, which result from metabolism of living organisms. And in archaeology, this field of research is often called organic residue analysis. So the molecular markers that I study, which are the most common, are the lipids, so ancient lipids, of course, which are highly concentrated in animal fat and oily plants. But we also studied other kind of products of plant metabolites. For example, plant exudates, like resins, some high volatile fraction of plants like essential oils, fragrance oils, etc. And the study of such substance can provide insight in several practices, as I was showing you here, related to food and drinks, but also related to manufacturing techniques of objects, and also to the body care in ancient society. So in body care, integrate here embalming practices, therapeutic practices, and also cosmetics practices, which could be also documented in some context. And beyond the identification of these organic products, we try also to investigate different segments of the lifestyles of past societies when we are looking for the procurement strategy of such products, but also how these products are transformed or how they are produced, for example, and which were their uses, which kind of functions could have this kind of organic substances, let's say. So in the field again of biomolecular archaeology, I'm in the slide number 5. I forget to tell you. Excuse me. So I'm slide 5 nowadays. Now. So slide number 5. So it's this one with where I show in biomolecular archaeology the different kind of substance or molecules which could be used or family. I looking, as I was saying, about lipids and what we call resins. Actually, it's kind of terpene and true terpenes molecules for people which are more chemists. That is this one that I studied. They are in archaeological context. They are of course not so specific as ancient DNA or proteins in order to identify the genus of animal, of plant substance, and it's also sometimes not so easy to specify the species. But in slide 6, if you can see, there is kind of interesting things to look for the lipid in archaeological context because they are more resistant. They have some advantages in archaeological context. How their structures are more like for kind of chemistry, let's say. Some carbon-carbon bonds are more resistant through, let's say, globally natural degradation. Let's say later what it is more specifically. But they are present in more artifacts as ancient DNA or proteins, which are generally related on bones or dental calculus. With some lipids, resins, we can also they can also be preserved in ceramic vessels. They are trapped or absorbed in the clay matrix of the vessels, but they are also sometimes found as surface residue. So they could be preserved also like adhesive stuff in some flint tools, but also as free lamps, as you can see in this picture. Really briefly, that's just the example of the and really fast in slide number 7. It's how we use to extract this sample. So as you can see here, we have ceramic shards. We use kind of Dremel driller, and we sample some powder. So after removing the surface of the vessel, which could be contaminated, we sample the layer just above, and we get a powder. And this powder is chemically extracted with different kind of solvent and protocols, which are developed according to the different kind of substance. And then they are generally analyzed through gas chromatography-mass spectrometry in order to separate the molecular mixture, which could be present, and provide some structural information of the molecule. The idea is to identify several molecules, 7 specific biomarkers, which can compose the archaeological substance. Slide number 8 is also another kind of protocol that we can use to study the substance which are preserved in dental calculus. That are also could be also interesting. So it's slide number 8. Yeah. In dental calculus, you can combine the study of lipids, of ancient DNA, ancient proteins, to have a nice idea about paleo diet, but also past disease or some also technical activities. But in slide 9, I wanted to show some examples of the wide range of raw products from animal or plant origin, which could be preserved in archaeological context. So we have raw materials, but also, and what is interesting, we have some molecules which show the presence of transformed product. For example, the presence of some vegetable oils or plant oils, which in archaeological context could only result to an extraction processes are they need to be highly concentrated in order to be still detected. We have also marker of fermented beverages, so showing a biochemical processes by the human, or we have also sometimes marker showing the cooking or the roasting practices of animal fats. Slide 10, I show you a kind of molecules that we could detect more or less in archaeological context, because the organic substance will not be preserved in the same way according to their molecular composition. For example, on the left of the slide, the polyunsaturated fatty acid are generally not preserved in archaeological context, as they are really they could be easily degraded through bacterial activities and oxidation. So generally, we don't detect them in most of the contexts. It's the same for the high volatile compounds. In a lot of contexts, like mono and sesquiterpene, they are so volatile. Generally, except on some specific favorable contexts like Egypt, and we will see that later, they are generally not so preserved. But after you have some molecules like saturated fatty acid from animal fat, could be are quite stable and could be preserved a long time. D and triterpene also, which have stable skeletons, and hydrocarbons, of course. Hydrocarbons, for example, it's also molecules which are present in bitumen, so you can imagine how stable it is, and we are talking here about million years sometime. The other things that I wanted to present you on slide 11 is, of course, you will not have the same preservation according if you have surface residue like free lumps or surface residue on tools, or if it trapped or absorbed residue in some vessels or in dental calculus. It's of course protected from exogenous contamination and degradation. So we could have more sensible molecules which could be preserved and trapped when they are trapped. And finally, also the lipids are relatively stable compared to other biomicromolecules like DNA or proteins. They still could be submitted to physical chemical parameters linked to the local geology and climatic influence. In burial context also, you could have different kind of degradation. What you can imagine, and all the contexts which are the most favorable context for bacterial activity and oxidation are the worst. And in the opposite, the best context is one which are when they are reduced. So the best one are generally the arid context, so arid warm like in Egypt, arid frozen like sometime in Siberia, or waterlogged context also could be really favorable. So in this context is the best kind of context that we could have for organic substance in archaeological context. So my field of research can address, as I was telling you, different kind of economy of organic resources, and it involves a wide range of practices. So that is slide number 13. Sorry, I forget to tell you sometime that. I apologize. So slide 13. There is different kind of practices I was telling and activities. Here I show you also the information that we can get by studying the food and drinks. So we can study combining the kind of vessel which were preserved, the consumption practices, some culinary preparation, which are sometimes interesting because as maybe you know, culinary practices could be also used sometimes as cultural markers. So it could be also interesting to compare some societies through the time or with the neighbors. So we can also have an idea about kind of recipes which could be done. That is example that which kind of molecule that we can still detect in well-preserved vessels. Some molecular analysis show sometimes a series of triglycerols which could be degraded of the acylglycerols, monoglycerols, and fatty acid at the end. And if it's well preserved, like in the slide number 15, sorry, we could have an assemblage of triglycerol which could be mostly related to some specific product. In this case, dairy product with triglycerol small triglycerides, which are mostly preserved in dairy and not, for example, in adipose fat from ruminant. So with molecular analysis, we could sometimes discriminate some animal plant origin if triacylglycerols are well preserved. But in slide 16, I show you also another method, because sometimes triacylglycerols are not preserved to the time. They could be, in some contexts, they will be degraded into fatty acids. And when we have just fatty acid, it's in archaeological context, it's quite difficult to associate them with an origin via the normal molecular analysis. So in this case, we use the molecular isotopy of carbons of two molecules, the palmitic acid and the stearic acid, which are the most important molecules in fatty acid in animal products, for example. And the way that these two fatty acids are biosynthesized and conducted in the different animals provide different isotopic ratio, and then we can distinguish between animal fat from different category, between protein fat, ruminant fat, marine products, dairy, etc. That is the most category. And just to conclude in slide 17 on the cuisine and cooking practices, what is interesting is sometimes when ancient society cooked marine product or terrestrial animals, they create new markers. In the case with marine products like fish, and they create, for example, in this slide 17, you can see the production of alkylphenyl alkylaminic acid, which are much more stable as the polyunsaturated acids. In this case, we can see that people was consume some marine product, but it was cooked. We have the same products which could happen when terrestrial animals are roasted and cooked. You create some specific ketones, which are showing also that people were grilled or cooked extremely intensively some animal fats. So that gives you also an idea of a kind of transformation of products, of cooking and of foods products. Sorry. And just before to arrive to the embalming practices, I wanted also in slides 18 to show you also another kind of information that we can provide in ancient societies. It's investigated organic products that are used to manufacture objects, and that are connected with different technical activities. Organic products, organic materials could be used to, like a glue, to fix, to haft some tools, but also to produce some vessel. In the vessel production, they could be used to seal some vessels, to decorate some vessels, also for the maintenance of the reparation of products. So it's all a kind of economy of recycling that we can also sometimes document. So that is the idea of also all this technical aspect. And what is maybe more interesting today for us is the study of this kind of product for body care and dental care. It's often difficult to show it in archaeological context, as this substance could be used, the same substance could be used for different kind of functions. And for example, dairy products or bee products are used in the food, but also in therapeutic properties, etc. in the past. In prehistory, we have, for example, for dental care, the presence of chewing gum, which could be beeswax chewing gum. Beeswax were also used to treat decayed tooth. It was the same with birch bark tar or some kind of resin, which was shown for dental hygiene. So we have different kind of evidence of that, and of course we have the protection of the body. It could be cosmetic or it could be embalming. These products again, and that is also interesting for embalming, could be used for ritual practices. We have the well-known balms in burial chambers and in Egypt, but we don't have to forget that this kind of substance could be used like in incense burners in other kind of contexts, like in Neolithic, in big kind of funeral chamber in northwest of France, we have also some resin and tar which were burned in funeral context. So now I will really enter to our Egyptian history, and with a kind of introduction about really brief history of embalming practices in ancient Egypt. I'm not first an Egyptologist, so I will not enter so in details. But first, kind of reminder, what is a mummification or embalming practices? So the idea is it's practices which are performed by specialized and learned persons. They could be called ritualist embalmers. And sorry, I forget to tell you, I'm slide 21. Excuse me. If I forget to tell you, just remember me that, because I continue to talk and I forgot to say that I changed the slide. So I'm in the 21st. So yes, so these embalming practices were actually interesting for two purposes. They are ritual processes first, of course, we are in funeral context, but they are also chemical process. And from a chemical perspective, the practice involved from simple natural preservation through desiccation, via proto-embalming treatment during prehistoric time, to a sophisticated pharaonic procedures of anthropogenic desiccation, so using natron. You can also have in this procedure exacerbation, evisceration, and the use of antibacterials, antifungals, barrier materials, and fixatives. So these preservation procedures, which could take up to 70 days to complete, ensure to the transformation of a vulnerable body to a durable mummy. That is the idea. And of course, we have a lot of ritualized acts and recitation of liturgy texts which come in the same processes. So mixing all the time together this kind of chemistry practices and this kind of ritual practices together. In ancient Egypt, of course, both magic and science were not separate stuff. They could also be linked together and associated together all the time. A brief history about products which were used for embalming. Actually, what is interesting, the first embalming practices are detected in Egypt already in prehistoric period. So I'm slide 22 now. And we have the first evidence of mummies, which were embalming in 4300 BC in Egypt. And at the beginning, was the substance which were used was mostly fat and oils. We could not be so precise, unfortunately. So it could be a plant oils or animal fats, which were used, and quite interesting to seal the skin and the body from eventual moistures which could arrive in some humidities context, as we have sometimes in Egyptian tombs. We have still, but really rarely, some antiseptic substances which could be added. Slide 23. From the Middle Kingdom, these antiseptic substances are more important and more frequent in the mummification. So we are here in 2000 until 1500 BC. And slide 24, in the New Kingdom, so from 1500 BC, more and more products are added in the mummification processes. You have in the animal fat and plant oil, which could be used different kind of animal products, could be marine products, fish products, could be ruminant products. In the plant oils, it could be sometimes castor oil, which was detected. And we have also not only conifer byproduct, probably resin or tar, but also sometimes pistachia resin and a little beeswax, and slowly bitumen was also integrated in the embalming. But slide number 25 is mostly from the third intermediate or the late periods, so from 1000 BC until about the Ptolemaic period, so 300, where the balm increasingly become more and more complex. We have really often in the balms different kind of product associated, sometimes 3, 4, 5 different kind of substance used to use the balms. Once again, really often the base of animal fat, plant oils, but also conifer product, a large amount of bitumen, pistachia resin, and beeswax, which are more and more integrate together to have more and more complex balms. And in slide 26, it's just to show you also that the embalmers could produce some balms, different kind of balms in the same mummy according to the different area of the bodies. Here you have an examples where, for example, the left side of the mummies, some bitumen were used in the left side and the mummies not in the left, and you have sometimes specific, more specific mixtures according if you are embalms the hand, embalm the head, some torso area, etc. In slide 27, I show you also an examples from literatures, which show also that you could have difference between the status of the people. So it could be social status of the people, but also the individuals. So between adults and children, for example, as you can see here, children were generally not so, the balms used for the children are generally simpler than from the adults. So mostly fat oils plus one other products, could be beeswax, resin, or something else. The adults are sometimes 3, 4 different kind of balms, substance in their balm, sorry. And in the slide 28, it's also sometimes a gender difference. It's difficult to do that because we have not so much mummy, and sometimes we cannot say exactly if it was male or female mummies. But what's up here, it's also that the male mummies have the balm more complex, so there are sometimes 3 or 4 ingredients in the mummification. It's generally less for the female mummies, but and that we need more analysis. Some products seems to be dedicated more frequently for the female mummy, like pistachia resin. Pistachia resin seems to be more related to the female. So you could also in the embalming procedure have distinction between gender, status, the age, etc. And the problem that we had until now, it's that we could just identify some individual mummies, which could not be compared with a large part of the society. So we have different mummy from different area, from different periods, and it was difficult to study really in one period what were the real embalming practices for a large part of the societies. And if you go to slide 29, I show you here the different kind of information that we can have about embalming substance and embalming workshop to know. So we can document them with 3 kind of sources. The first one is the archaeological deposit, the embalming cache. You have in the left one of the largest embalming cache, which were also recently discovered. So that show all the pottery and all the material which were used for the embalming. In the middle, you see the really important sources are the written and pictorial sources. So with these sources, and especially the papyri, we have an idea of a global idea of what was the rules of embalming at different periods and for different peoples. But papyri are not present in all the periods. We have some in the New Kingdom, we have some later, but for example, during the late period, we have nothing. And the last information that we can get about the embalming is when you study and what was done to know the mummy itself. So you samples the mummy, and you can also identify different kind of bands which were used. And slide 30. What was really impressive with this discovery of the embalming facility at Saqqara is we can reshape our knowledge about this understanding of ancient mummification, because it's extremely rare to identify an embalming workshop. So this embalming workshop was excavated by my colleague Ramadan Hussein from the University of Tübingen. It's an embalming workshop that which was dated from the 26th dynasty, so about 7th century and 6th century BC. And this embalming workshop, so quite recent, so late period for Egypt, were located close to some old pyramid. This one from the King Yunus, the small one, the not beautiful one, and not so far from the Djoser one. That was quite interesting because it's a period where the Egyptians decide to come back to the early periods to try to create a link in terms of Egyptian identity with the previous Egyptian stuff. So they create new funeral complex close to the first pyramids. And what was really exceptional to in this discovery of my colleague Ramadan Hussein in the slide 31st, we have an embalming workshop, and it's probably one of the only one in the world where you have different facilities and especially an embalming room which were underground. And that is quite unique. Generally, you have the embalming workshop which are above ground, where it's written Ibu structures. Here you have the Ibu structure with some activities which are above and some which were at 13 meters deep, the embalming room. And this embalming room were really exceptional because there has an architectural design that could help to reduce the hills risk of the ancient embalmer from microorganisms by means that we found some ventilation systems. This room have some air tunnels running through the rooms. So it was connected to massive networks of other subterranean tunnels. There are 2 channel drainage systems for bodily fluids. So good to relieve the evisceration. And we have also identified large pottery vessels which could be used for fumigation sources. So for example, to reduce the bad smell, but also to avoid any insect which could be related to perturbation of the treatment of the days. So that is something quite exceptional because it's quite rare to have these things. And I could, of course, investigated the pottery which were identified in this embalming room. So I'm now in slide 32nd. In this embalming room, we identified different kind of vessels. I'm a little late, so I will go a little further, but yeah. And just in this embalming room, we found also an embalming cache. And slide 33, you can see the different kind of vessel which were discovered. So it's vessels related to embalming. And in each of these vessels, you had some inscription in hieratic languages, and which were the most common in Egypt at this period. And in this inscription, it was there is different kind of instruction for the mummification. So we were lucky to have vessels where we have the instruction of embalming procedures, and that is extremely rare. And we could combine this information to the chemical analysis and the investigation of organic residue which were preserved inside. Slide 34. I show you which kind of inscription you could find. So most of the vessels were coming from the embalming room, but I also identified some vessels which were found in burial chambers. So in Saqqara complex, I forget to tell you that first, sorry. You have the embalming workshop above ground and in the embalming room 13-meter deeps, but you have also 30-meter deeps. You have also burial chambers, different kind of burial chambers with several mummies. And in some of these burial chambers, we have also some vessels connected to the last deposit for the last maybe funeral practices or chemical practices of the mummies just before to close the burial chambers. So slide 35. We could analyze and extract it, as I was telling you at the beginning of my introduction. We was extracting some chemicals which could be preserved in the vessels. So we chemically extracted different kind of vessel with some mention. One was written to wash, the other to make the odor pleasant. We have some instruction quite interesting also. It was used the 3 days of the mummification for making beautiful the skin. We have also substance which were used for the treatment of bandage, of wrap, of the embalming. Some dedicated to the treatment of the head, and also some inscription with some gods like Imseti, which are the god protectors of the liver, or the god Duamutef, which were the god protector of the stomach. And what's so following the different kind of protocol, we identify a large quantity of substance which were composed the embalming materials. Some products were possibly local substance. For example, animal fats were available in Egypt, castor oil also, but we also identify a lot of imported products, especially from other Mediterranean regions. So products which are not endemic from Egypt at the beginning. For example, some plant oils type olives could be identified. Olive oils were not really present in Egypt at this period. Bitumen were identified. There are some bitumen in Egypt actually, but what is interesting with bitumen, there is a specific chemical signature according to the geologic origin of the bitumen, and the chemical signature of the bitumen found in Saqqara was the same as the bitumen from the Dead Sea. So it was an imported bitumen which was chosen, and not a more local one which were present in Egypt. We are also fond of, in particular interesting, we could identify some essential oil, or let's say fragrance oils, so high volatile markers from plant oils from different kind of products. One from juniper or cypress. Unfortunately, we have not enough molecular marker to distinguish both, but still related to this product. And we have also high volatile markers from cedar. So probably a cedar oil, possibly a tar. That are also products which are not available originally in Egypt. So cedar and juniper were also imported probably from Mediterranean area. And we have also identified different kind of resins. Pistachio resin, also imported from Mediterranean area. And more surprising is the presence of some canarium resin that we call mostly LME, and a dipterocarpaceous resin that we call nowadays mostly damar. And that both resin are related to trees which are growing only in tropical forest. So showing a really long distance importation. That is a substance that we are identify, but we also identify slide 39, sorry, the presence of markers which could appear following a mixtures, probably resulting to cooking and mixed different kind of products. We have marker which showing that damar were mixed with beeswax or fats, but also other mixtures showing that LME molecules were mixed together with oil or fats. And that is interesting because we identify new molecular markers resulting to a transformation, to a production of mixtures. And slide 40. What is quite interesting is, of course, we could relate it to the substance and the mixture that we identified to the inscription. And I show you here the examples of the inscription, the substance which were used for the bandage, the wrap, or the embalm of the mummies. And it was quite interesting because we could follow quite the procedure, the recipes. Not exactly, because we don't know exactly how the different quantity, the ratio of the substance, but we found in all the vessels some animal fats, generally it's ruminant fats, which were identified. In some vessels, they were added with some a fragrance oil of juniper or cypress. After, in most of the vessels, they added also some LMEs and cedar tar, and really often plant oil type olives. And these big mixtures, which are often present, identify in some red balls are then transferred in some white beaker with heating treatment. And what is funny, we found some heating treatment in the vessels, but also molecular markers showing the heating treatment of these products together. So here we could also documented kind of recipes procedures step by steps. And we could also, as I begin to tell you, documented different kind of practices related to, for example, to the odors. We identified that the inscription on the pottery with the inscription to make his odor presence are related to mixture of LME and animal fats. To this inscription to make beautiful the skin are related to mixture of beeswax and animal fats, which could make sense. The beeswax are interesting properties for the skin. To wash the body, it was a mixture of fragrance oils of cedar and juniper of cypress. And the pottery related to the stomach, possibly in the future to use in the canopic jar to embalm the stomach. It was mostly a beeswax. And this one related to the organ, the liver, probably to embalm it later in the canopic jar again, is a mixture of LME and fragrance oil of juniper and cypress. We have also, I will in slide 42, different kind of mixture used for the head, especially pistachio resin, which are in Saqqara mostly related to the treatment of the head. And I will go now directly in slide 43 to show you that this result suggests interesting competence of the embalmers, because they use all the time substance which have some specific biochemical properties. For example, pistachio resin, LME, damars, different kind of oils, bitumen and beeswax have antibacterial, antifungal, and odoriferous properties, and thus that help to preserve the human tissue and reduce the imprisoned smell. So totally perfect in this kind of embalming practices. The animal fat, the plant oils, and beeswax were also essential ingredients in recipes for the treatment of different body parts, as well as in ointments used for to moisturize the skin. And also, we don't have to forget that some of these products have hydrophobic and adhesive properties, like the tars, resin, and bitumen, and it's also useful to seal the skin pores. And also, again, exclude moisture and treat the lining wrapping. We don't also have to exclude the color or the appearance of this product, which may also be desirables, because once again we are in ritual context. So it's a lot of properties which could be researched, but most of them make sense in this context. Really briefly, because it's already late, and I apologize, I'm a little too long probably. One other things that we wanted to elucidate it's some inscription which are still not well attested by Egyptologists and philologist people, especially the word NTU and Sefetch, which are really related to embalming processes in a lot of texts, but which are not clearly identified. Previous Egyptological interpretation was thinking that it was related to myrrh and incense, the word NTU. So I'm sorry, on slide 44. That makes sense because in context, 1,000 years before Saqqara or earlier, we could have some pictures, sources where some trees look like myrrh tree or incense trees. But it was not sure. For the Sefetch also, the previous Egyptological interpretation was not so clear. It was an unidentified oil, traditionally known as one of the 7 sacred oils for the opening of the mouth ritual, but we didn't know more. We analyzed several parts of this with this both inscription, and in slide 45 you can see that in the pottery with the word dry NTU, we all the time identify the combination of cedar fragrance oil, juniper cypress oil, and ruminant fat. So it's not exactly myrrh and incense. And that would mean that at Saqqara, maybe not later, maybe not previously, at Saqqara, these words are related to this substance. And what is interesting, these substances are also really interesting odoriferous properties, smell properties. And that could mean that these NTU are, it's what one of our hypotheses, are related to a smell product or different products which could fit with myrrh and incense in previous periods, but which are composed of other products later, but keeping the same properties or the same function. For the savage oil, we identify all the time ruminant animal fats, sometimes with juniper, so it's slide 46, sorry, sometimes with juniper cypress oils, sometimes with LME. So one of the hypotheses, slide 47, sorry, could be that ruminant fat is used like an ointment, an unguent, sorry, to maybe to transfer odoriferous substance to the mummy, maybe with again antiseptic and odoriferous properties. And slide 48, we also, and to quote in my conclusion, we also identified some few vessels which were directly in burial chambers. Up to now, it was only the vessels connected to the embalming workshop, so the vessels to produce the bombs. There we have also some, we could also identify and documented some vessels related to the last deposits with the mummies. And what's quite interesting, we found quasi the same kind of substance in these vessels, except in slide 49 now, the presence of damar and bitumen, which was not identified in the embalming workshop, but only in the vessels close to the mummy, possibly for the last ritual aspect or the last chemicals procedures before to close the burial chambers. That's it's something we could check also when we will investigate later the mummies. And slide 50, to conclude, we could show with these studies of an embalming workshop an idea of the embalming procedures during the late periods in Egypt, so during the 7th and 6th dynasty. Embalming workshop documentation once again show not only the procedure for one mummies, but a larger number of mummies. So maybe not for all the societies, because you need to have to be part of elite or the more to be embalmed, because it's substance which cost a lot. But a larger part of the society we get information of a larger space of societies concerning these embalming practices. We show and we confirm also that at this period we have a diversification, a complexification of embalming practices. The majority of the substances used at Saqqara workshop were imported, many of them from considerable distance far. Once again, bitumen identified in Saqqara originate from the Dead Sea, pistachio resin, olive trees, cedar, juniper, cypress, absent from Egypt, grow in different locations in Mediterranean basins. Probably they were imported from the eastern part of Mediterranean area, because in this period you have strong connection between Egypt and the Levant, the eastern part of Mediterranean, nowadays south of Turkey, Lebanon, Israel. And that show an important trade network which include such kind of products. And slide 51, what we could also provide like new information about this exchange, connection with Egypt with some tropical country. LME could be originated from tropical forests in Africa or tropical forest in Asia. Damar are only present in southern Asia. So that is something we were not thinking that we could detect some so far away product which were imported in this period, showing that in the embalming in Egypt was an important economical aspect, which include a large scale of exchange. and also that you have to imagine that these embalmers was choosing specific products for specific properties, and they were knowing that from distant country they could find some raw product, they could transform them, they have kind of chemistry empiric knowledge to create balms for specific mummification. And I thank you for your attention, and yes, it's finished for me.
Thank you so much, Maxime, for bringing us through your work with all the different techniques and approaches, and the different types of insights you can gain from your very systematic and analytic approach for archaeology. It's so interesting. Then also to take this analysis to insights of trade routes and world economy from that time. It's so impressive. And my first question was, did you when you started analyzing, all the different findings that way, did you predict or were you planning on making, like world maps of economy and so on? Or was it something that just came with time and with the gained insights that you could do?
No, honestly, we was thinking that we will find some imported product, probably from Mediterranean area, because there is different kind of goods which were traveling since a long time between Egypt. So we knew that they were a long distance, but so far away, and to identify these tropical resins, that was really surprising. That's why I was not prepared at all. So when we get the results, I have first to study, analyze a lot of reference of resins, find some old collection of garden that we have, of aging resins, to study really this resin, to be sure of their identification, because once again we use in our to compare our archaeological samples some modern reference, so we analyze with the same procedures modern resins, but of course these resins, their molecular composition change through the times, and we need also to identify some marker of degradation through oxidation, bacterial activities, but also marker which are related to human practices, cooking, etc. So that way it takes time, because before we were definitely sure which kind of resin. We had to study a different kind of product from different area in the world, and to be sure that we were really connected to that. So it's something that, for this tropical resin, it was not expected. The other, yes, what I didn't also expected is the presence of some high volatile molecules, the sesquiterpenes. This one that we could say that it was more kind of fragrance oils than a resin, because it's marker which are mostly concentrated in the high volatile fraction of some plant oil. So people know essential oils. We cannot tell essential oil because we cannot prove that it was cooked. So to produce an essential oil, you have to distillate. It could be possible, but we cannot prove it. So we can extract these volatiles with other things, but we could still say that we have a fragrance oil. So these volatile things, and that is, as I was telling you before, is quite impressive, because generally in archaeological context they are not preserved. In Egypt, it's so well preserved, it's close context, so they could keep this kind of markers, and we can not just say we have conifer products, but we have a fragrance oil of cedar, we have fragrance oil of cupressaceae, so it could be juniper. So the levels of interpretation of the substance were unexpected, and the long distance trade was not also expected. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is so impressive to see, the implications of the work that you did on a large scale and on a very detailed scale. So it's really fascinating. And
But that it's possible because it's Egypt also, because we are one of the best contexts of preservation in the world. That also helps.
yeah, and this is like the other question I wanted to ask you. You know, what would be the next best one to do this? Like, are there other ancient or, you know, history contexts that have at least a close enough, well preserved, um, y- preserved stuff? I don't know it because it can range from everything, right? From food to, you know,
Yeah.
from self.
I
Yeah,
I think outside of Egypt is difficult. You have probably place in the world with similar climates of Egypt, which could be interesting. But after you need that this ancient society have produced some ceramic vessels with different kind of food. So in Egypt also you have a kind of uh, knowledge, expertise of a lot of things that also are interesting because they are used and they use also. It's not every kind of society which could develop so large um, action systems, let's say, or trades. For the preservation, you could have after this kind of information globally will be maybe difficult in our context, but yes, once again, dry and warm contexts are absolutely interesting. After there is other contexts where I was quite surprising about the preservation. It's more, let's say, in more not so dry context. But if the soils, the sediments are extremely acidic, really acid sediments, it's quite good because it's not good for the bones, but it's good for organic residue because the bacterial activity are less important. And when I was working in Southern Caucasus, in some contexts we have really acidic context, and we could also have really well preserved materials. It's not the level of Egypt, but we could find that. The only place where it will be all the time be difficult to work is tropical area, because tropical area is the context where there is more and more bacterial activities, and the organic residue will be totally degraded. But maybe I don't know in America continent. Maybe in area in the north of Mexico, South US, you should have similar condition for preservation. So could be interesting to have possibly in the future investigation showing well preservation.
yeah, and I was thinking in the terms of maybe ancient China. I know we had a while ago, you know, about metallurgy and how different recipes of metals and kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, that also kind of alluded to the governmental structures and trading in China. But
Yes, absolutely. There are some first article was showing also early evidence of kind of trade routes with also such kind of materials, LME and unsense resin, which could have traveling ice later. It's AD, so it's I think in the early Middle Age, but uh, there were not enough investigation, and of course maybe not the south of China or the place where it's more tropical, so close to Vietnam or some area, but other area in China where it's more arid. That could, yeah, I'm sure that it should be wonderful to study there.
yeah, interesting. I wanted to give other people a chance to ask questions. And then, you know, I wanted to check with you about, you know, the time you still have after checking, because, yeah, we plan for an hour. I don't know if we have time, but I'm not sure if you have time. So, LT, did you have a question, Z or Victoria? Thank you.
Well, this is Z. I just would like to, say thank you for the presentation. It was excellent, and the content was just riveting, and outstanding visuals to go by. I don't have a question. I just really want to thank you and thank the Science Society and everybody who stuck around. Like, bravo. So that's it. This is the I'm done speaking. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And please just flash your mics or submit questions in the chat. I have a few more notes of questions. So, Maxime, do you have a few minutes maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. And the I know we alluded a little bit to that, but do you like a question that I had written down from a person that submitted a question was if you could elaborate on the potential social economic implication of the non-local organic substances, um, that could you even make basically assumptions on the origin of where the substances are from and how basically the structures were there to be able to basically trade with Egypt?
Um, so yeah, assumption we can say we can propose a lot with so if you want to go in the slide 51 to this I propose different way based on the location of the raw product, but we know that especially since the late Bronze Age, so since let's say the second part of the second millennium BC, Egypt were really present in the eastern part of Median area. So nowadays Lebanon, Israel, and there are some kind of Egyptian colony there. We know that there were strong exchange importation. So this product, for example, nowadays in what we call Levant, the Levant, all these cedar products production, all these juniper, cypress, all this pistachio resin were probably produced or harvested in this area. Once again, was society which have strong relations. Sometimes it was really Egyptian people in not anymore in the period of Saqqara, but before Egyptian colony. We have some Egyptian material which are present in this area. So we know that there was some trade place within that. So that is definitely something we can propose. Considering the tropical resin, LMEs and Derma, which could both come from so Southeastern Asia, could come well, not probably directly imported, so they should have probably some intermediary population or um, um, trader. No, sorry, I forget the word, but yeah, there was some intermediate people probably. So they could have two ways to arrive to Egypt from, let's say, southern Egypt. We know that there were probably other food products and goods which could come from India. So through India and after through the sea, using and in the south of Arabic Peninsula, they could have some trade routes which were known already at this period. So it's not impossible through the sea. At the end of this period of Saqqara, there will be the kind of Persian invasion. So it's not also impossible that we have a terrestrial routes through India and through the what appear to be the Persian Empire, which arrived after. So you could have both, and that could be the different kind of route which could have so between different exchange system area. So different possibility. What is important to integrate as once again, as it's important product, they are valuable products. So of course it should be expensive. they choose this specific product. They could also have something more local resins, for example, some frankincense or myrrh, which are present in Arabic Peninsula, which are closer to Egypt. They choose other products, so they knew that they have this product, this resin with specific properties, and they wanted this one. So they have this access, maybe with intermediate people. They chosen this product, and as it was far away, but still important in embalming workshop, it was something important, and not for all the people of the society in Egypt. And what is interesting actually in Saqqara, I'm talking about the embalming workshop to embalm the mummies which are in the burial chambers in 30-meter deeps, but above we identify also some mummies from more simple peoples, which were actually not really embalmed, but still well preserved because we are in Egypt context. And people knew that in this embalming workshop there was kind of ritual aspect, and people wanted to provide to use this kind of funerary services. So they put somebody close to this context to use all the ritual aspects. And these ones are not so well embalmed, or sometimes have no embalming procedures. If you go in the funeral chamber, you have different kind of quality of mummies, maybe not with the same embalming stuff. So we find different products. Probably not all of the people, according to the stages, have the access of all the products. Maybe it's kind of assumption the middle rich could have access to easily imported product from medicinal area, like cedar products, something like that. Maybe the damar and the LME was not for every people. But that we will maybe confirm it when we could directly studies the bones of the different mummies according to the status of the mummies.
That is really interesting. Thank you for that answer. And I'm trying to invite Marina to speak.
I invited her as well, so perhaps
Great.
she's up.
LT, in the meantime, did you have a question?
I do. I
Okay.
do.
Please go
Thank you,
ahead.
Maxime. It was a lot of information, but what my question has to do with, yes, it's expensive, so not everyone, only maybe very like rich people. But my question has to do with slide number 25. You showing that like there is the differences in the children versus adult. So I wonder, even in a whole family, so what's the explanation? You know, if the family is rich, so you imagine that their kids, maybe even their pets, probably are getting this practice, but what you find is not, right?
Now the thing is, with this example from colleagues who summarize a lot of embalming studies, it was just an average studies about all kind of children, which were the embalming practice of children which were analyzed, and the adults. The problem is with this slide of 34, it gives you an information that you could have distinction between adults and children, but here it's the average of all the adults of this period and all the children of this period. Of course, if it's a children of a rich family and or not so rich family, etc., maybe you will not have the same. Well, I think to be embalmed in ancient Egypt with different kind of substance, you should have already high social status, because it costs a minimum. You need to pay also the embalmers, the ritual. So already to be embalmed is not for every people probably. After
Okay,
the quality of embalming could also increase according to the status in the society, more related. But that is the problem that we have. That is trends that my colleague could found, and that has to be refined according to the context, the periods, and the status.
all right, thank you. Now I understand.
Marina, did you have a question? Welcome.
Thank you. Maxim, your presentation has been great, so thank you so much for that. Thank you, Katrina, for facilitating this, LTZ, and Victoria for providing the support that was needed. I just had a quick question. My question was in regards to when you are looking at these economies and looking at like the trade of these products, what historians are you kind of like dating or working back through? Because I heard you kind of mention that there might be trade routes between the Indian subcontinent and the Arabian Peninsula. But I think a little bit of confusion for me because you referenced India, but India doesn't exist back then. So it's like a little bit of like, I just was trying to understand what groups would have been a part of this, what empires at that time. And maybe if I was to cross-reference what historians you were looking into, it might make it a little bit easier for me to understand.
Yes, sorry. Of course, I should, of course, mention that when I say in India, nowadays India, of course. Honestly, I will not be able to answer you because I'm not at all specialist, and as I was not expected to find some product from so far away, I'm not at all specialist of this region of the world in these periods. But there are some we know that there is after later the Indus civilization which appear, which have a lot of kind of different kind of different amount of knowledge and technology, who have a lot of contact with the Mesopotamian countries, not countries, Mesopotamian societies, let's say like that. So of course, it's just talking about the regional area. I prefer not to say more because I'm not at all specialist over that, but there was different kind of society. We know that in this, it's not so well known, but we know that in the south of Arabic Peninsula, there are already some kind of trade entrepot which were existed. And later we will much more develop with kind of also some instance road. The Egyptian documented the country of Pun also, which could be also possibly the south, related to the south of the Arabic Peninsula. But I'm not at all specialist on this period. First, I'm mostly a specialist on Mediterranean region. I have to go to Egypt with more closely with these studies, but honestly, I cannot tell you what we know that there is different kind of society in the Levant, which are well developed in the Iron Age. We know that there are contacts with India. I mean, India, the geographic region. Exactly which kind of civilization, society, I cannot answer.
Okay, I was just curious.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Are there any historians that you have come upon while kind of being in this research that you found interesting and maybe did not include in your research because that wasn't the scope of your research, but you might have just come upon names or particular like books that seemed like they would be interesting, but not necessarily pertaining to your research? Just curious, not don't feel compelled to answer either.
Sorry, can you you would like to?
Like,
Sorry, I didn't hear hear so good your question. Can you
no
repeat?
problem. So I think when you're doing this kind of research, there's always like a little bit of interest that starts to develop in like, these areas. And I think as you're like compiling the research, there's research, sometimes like things that may have come to the forefront, but didn't seem so relevant to your research. And so what I'm asking is like, have you come upon any um, historians that you thought were interesting and just haven't had a chance to really read or haven't had a chance to really investigate further? Just curious and not necessarily asking to grill you or anything. I was just more of a
Okay,
curiosity
about the
question.
society of this period from, for example, the Levant or India or something like that?
Yeah,
Or?
well, from the Levant, so like I think that period is very interesting. So I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
but there is several, a lot of research Iron Age and late Bronze Age. So I can tell you in mind which kind of round, but there's large literatures because they are the well, let's say, especially in the Levant and Israel, they are the most archaeological period which are studied from the late Bronze Age to the early Iron Age. So all the archaeological contexts are well investigated nowadays. I have nowadays a student who from from Israel who is working on this kind of context. If you write me, I can give you a kind of summary of literature or books if you would like. Yeah, if you write me, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do that.
Yeah, thank you so much for those questions, Marina. And kind of my last question would be, well, what does the future that you kind of are excited about that you are working on? If you could give us like a tiny peek into your work future that wouldn't compromise any publications or anything that you're planning, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, so now I'm working actually in the publication about food and drinks importation in Egypt. So not so I was telling you I'm not looking only about embalming products, so but also in food and drinks, and so we will try to publish that soon. That we have transport amphora which were imported to Egypt and with product from different areas also in the world, so mostly related to the food and drinks. So just to complete in these biological resources what we could have. And yes, the future research that I will continue is also to continue with the previous person who was talking to me. It's to continue to study more globally from the final Bronze Age, so the second millennium, the second part of second millennium, what's happened in Eastern Mediterranean area from Egypt to nowadays Turkey. So and also what's happened with the contact with Mesopotamia, with the Levant, with Egypt, and with the Aegean world. So it's a period of a strong exchange and relationships. And the idea is to look with how this biological resource could be integrated or used in this kind of exchange. So it could be once again products that I call not only embalming product because they could be used for therapeutic properties or other kind of body care properties, but also food and drinks, etc. So that is in the future. So try to continue to do that in Egypt, but also against in relation with all the Eastern Mediterranean area.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you think the preserved materials are from also everyday people?
Sorry, if the
Uh,
preserved material are what?
also from like everyday people, not just, important figures of history. The majority of people, I think, do we know a lot about everyday life from like the majority of the population, or do you think for now we just know a very
Yeah,
small
the
part?
the the archaeologists have a lot of information already of daily life of these people. We know also with some botanical rests or bones rests, which kind of animals products, which kind of plant product they was consumed. But we don't know how they could sometimes how they could be transformed, which kind of recipes, cuisine they were doing, which kind of mixture, and how they were consumed them. We also studied it's a period where the grape wine was more and more present in the region of the world. Who was drinking grape wine? Who were producing that? Who were exchanging that? Olive oil began also to be produced and exported. Sorry. So there is all this aspect of the trade. We can also identify some transport amphora. So amphora which were used to be transport and to be export or import. So that is information that we can provide like an additional information. We know already a lot about which kind of cuisine, kind of cooking practices, not cooking practices, but cuisine, but not so clear, and also the way the people are decide to use such products and ingredients, such kind of cereals, more or less. Sometimes it's related to the climate, to the environment. Sometimes it's cultural practices. So that is something that we can also provide a little more information.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting, and I'm looking forward to read that publication. I don't know why, but I love I don't know, imagining how people used to live and how their lives were, and I think we can learn a lot about it. Do you think we can make just one last? I'm sorry, I keep
Yeah,
asking.
sure.
But do you think we can, we make so many assumptions about what is healthy for us, especially when we talk about food and lifestyle, and how we then claim, yeah, people used to eat this way, and people used to do this and that, work more, work less, sleep more, sleep less. Do you think you can, with your research, what do you think about that? Are most claims out there pretty silly, or are they actually based on your findings? Because I think you could contribute a lot to that discussion.
Now the thing is, in prehistoric context, we have not all the text, so we have not the high levels of the real consumption. We know what they could consume. After the quantities, how it was mixed, it's a little more difficult. And we have also, according to the period and the context, we have some taboo also, like nowadays with some religion, but it was already possible in some periods. So there is so parameters that we sometimes we are not sure. So that it's I guess it's quite difficult. What we can maybe say and look, it's for example in in late Bronze Age, we see kind of in Eastern Mediterranean, we see already kind of globalization of the food which were consumed. So it's something which appears slowly to have the same kind of ingredients, the same kind of food products that which are still known nowadays begin to arrive in this period. So that is quite interesting. After for the healthy things, I don't know. It's difficult because we don't know the ratio of the product. That in the historical period you have much more information because they can say how much they could consume. I say also the opposite, the wine or something like that or something. What is maybe interesting for nowadays, if we come back to the embalmings, if the natural product that they use, the mixtures of fats, beeswax, for the skin, some kind of resins, some kind of fragrance oils, that could be interesting. Also nowadays I'm working in collaboration. That's also one of the futures with some dermatologists which were looking for treatment of the skins, to find other kind of natural products which could be interesting. The wax is already beeswax is already used, but which kind of product we could create. Also the legis medicine. Can we say that in English? Legis or des medicine? No. The legist. Can we say that in English?
Yeah, I think we can.
Yeah, legis medicine. Also are interesting to use also new chemicals. It's not so easy because it's for the death, because they use mostly formaldehyde nowadays, and it's unhealthy for the people who was working like that. So they're interesting to look for what was doing ancient Egyptian. to find some product for conservative product which are more healthy to protect the worker which are using which are produce that. So that are interesting technique that we can learn. Once again with the food, it's we know which kind of ingredient they could have. The quantity that they could eat according to the people is difficult nowadays.
Yeah, that's interesting. And also regarding the medicine, that was one of the questions I had written down actually about what we can learn about their pharmacology, basically, because
Yeah,
even
that is
modern
mostly the things I think.
yeah, because even modern medicine was for a very long time based on ancient Egypt knowledge, right? I mean, we didn't evolve too much until very recently, unless I'm very mistaken. But I think the Greek book that was used to teach medicine still until very recently was actually based on Egyptian knowledge, as far as I know. So it's really interesting how um, so from these, so do you combine the knowledge from these books with what you find and then
No, but that is something that we plan to do with also Egyptologist colleagues, which are also specialists about so this kind of literature, but also all the papyri which are relating to medicine and therapeutic. There is some colleagues from me who was working most intensively on about the translation of such document and to summarize everything. And yes, this idea is to check what was used. We would like also to reproduce ourselves, what we call in archaeology, we call that experimental archaeology. Actually, it could be also good for nowadays. It's to reproduce something from the text, analyze them in the same way as our archaeological samples, and try to compare the molecular signatures to check if we could have similar kind of mixture or if it could be related to something which was identified. But actually, it's one of the future projects that I would like also to develop with colleagues, Egyptologist colleagues, because after I have no so much knowledge about the epistemology in medicine through the time, so probably you're right that it was used. But again, for the pharmacology aspect, what is interesting, it's sometimes the important molecular marker that we find in such resins or tars, because tars are also important, or oils, are sometimes molecules close as modern pharmacology, which could be organic synthetic molecules, which are used for, again, antiseptic, antibacterial, sometimes antiviral aspect. So it's just because nowadays we focus on some molecule specific, extremely well concentrated, but similar kind of molecules with similar kind of bioactivity properties could be identified in such kind of resin. So um, it's for me it's quite logical that during long time it was related. And what is a shame, it's in our in Europe, but I guess it's the same in US. We lose a lot of the traditional way and traditional knowledge of such things. But until the beginning of the 20th century, there is already some tars, conifer tars, birch bark tars, which were still produced and which are still used in some part in the world, which are used to against to for the treatment of different kind of skis of the when you was hurt when you or again when the animals also were attacked by other wild stuff, if you have to if you were burned or something like that. So there is a thing which could be also nowadays still interesting, to refound, let's say.
yeah, I agree. It's really interesting. And I think, don't you think, I mean, a lot of the reasons why we kind of lost all this knowledge, it's a little bit church related now, like very radical. It was, that sent us back to the dark ages, at least in Europe, and we lost a lot of that knowledge. And there's a question I asked for an engineer that was here for a very different field, but um, the so do you think using this kind of belief type of knowledge, like, I don't know, my great grandmother used to say, eat honey every day and this and that, from these kind of passing down maybe in places that are still kind of traditional, that we can maybe descend some of these ancient knowledge type of recipes, and then would it be interesting to feed that into maybe some machine learning with all the data you collect, like the just
Actually, it's something also what the people, the anthropologists or the ethnographists begin to document for every kind of knowledge, and which especially if they can document a traditional society, or they use traditional techniques, let's say, that is something that I think they begin to create some database to keep and to document everything, because I think we are in the last periods where there is still some traditional societies which are working with traditional knowledge. So there is still people in the world who are working like that, which have still this knowledge. But according to my colleague, which are doing ethnographic studies, something like that, it's more and more old people. In every part in the world, the young generation have other things to do to continue to create old tar, for example, to plant tars, or to document all glue, or all food practices, or all traditional methods. The new generation everywhere want to do something, to learn something. And in Europe, we already learn a lot, so that's why we begin to try to document that. But it's something really important to do, because at the old generation in 10 years will disappear. We will not have any more direct evidence on probably on so traditional way for it could be for therapeutic properties, but also kind of I think for the food is other things. The food is something which could be transferred easily, but yeah, again some resin transformation, some tars production, some charcoals production. There is a lot of activities, some tools production, which are not anymore interesting for a lot of people. They will disappear soon. So that is something that indeed something with the machine learning or thing has to be integrated, documented, and also for us to have access to this knowledge in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's really wonderful to know, because I could imagine that combining this with these archaeology findings and analysis that you do, could we maybe point back to when this originated, where it came from, and how these ideas and knowledge was passed along. I think that's because back in time, the writing down was probably was not so common in population, and then also it would dissolve. You had to manually rewrite, copy the text. So it would be really
But we have,
interesting.
for example, for the prehistoric society, we have no text anymore, and we know that we have lost some knowledge. Or sometimes the archaeologists try to recreate some tools, so with experimental archaeology, and sometimes they find a way how they could to reproduce these tools, but sometimes we have no idea anymore. Sometimes we find archaeological objects, we are not sure about their function, because we lose everything. And if it's not a also, as you said, if it's a society with text, it's not sure that you have the text mentioned in all these things. If it's prehistoric societies without text, it's difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I imagine. I was just thinking some traditions that maybe pass along originated in something that you could say, oh, I found this type of resin here, and it makes sense what, you
Yeah.
know, some traditional.
But for example, for this resin, for example, the Elemi and Damars, you know, the European used that during long time for the painting varnish. So, but and it was also used in the Asia for the ship. I'll say that the corking. But if you document it with people who are looking that, it's also for several kind of practices, and the odoriferous practices are known, but also how they are used for the therapeutic properties. Actually, it's not. It's something that we need to still to document it nowadays with the population which are still doing that, who are still doing that. That is an example.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is really exciting and so interesting. And yeah, I wish we could spend a lot more time discussing this, because I could continue going on and on. But I know time is limited for everyone.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming,
Thank
for
you.
not giving up, and for sharing this. This is so interesting and fascinating, and I'm really curious. Let us know when you publish your next paper. I'm really
Okay.
interested in reading it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and have a good day for you, I guess.
Yeah, and good evening for you, and thank you everyone for the questions. And yeah, if you like discussions like this, just check on the calendar, join us again. And Maxime, good luck for everything, and really
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. I'll close the room in 3, 2, 1. Bye everyone. Thank you.